I never really knew anybody that had an experience, or
Right.
it wasn't one of those things that we could talk about. But I think it's an interesting subject, and I think that there's a lot to it. I don't know what that is, but thinking back, and flying humanoids have kind of been.
I gotta work it.
Okay, so Rob has that up on our live title.
Yeah, we're finally the audio. Sorry about that, everyone. The audio is finally up and running. There was one more setting I had to go aside. So we'll fix that. But basically, they probably have no clue what we were talking about out there. So if you just want to talk about the humanoids,
Okay.
then
Yeah.
yeah.
So when I think back about flying humanoids, I think they've been around forever. I mean, there's a lot of historical texts that talk about this sort of stuff. But I think the one that really kind of kicked it off in popular culture was the Mothman of Point Pleasant. And I didn't really want to necessarily get into that too deep because it's been just covered so much. And I think that it's one of those that unless you've been under a rock, that's kind of one of those things that a lot of people really know about. But to kind of give a little background on it, if you are one of those people that don't know, the Mothman of Point Pleasant was kind of centered around the collapse of the Silver Bridge. It was in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and where it is it's a bridge that's on um, US 235 that crosses over from Ohio into Point Pleasant. I can't even remember the name of that Ohio town, and I know it doesn't ever get any of the glory out of it, if you will. But so, excuse me, it's about 5 p.m. on December 15th, 1967. There were 37 cars on the bridge, 31 of which went into the water when it collapsed. And of that, there were 46 people that died when they fell into the water. There was 9 that were seriously injured. And of the controversy was that off of that was a flying humanoid that was seen in the local area particularly in the days leading up to it, but it actually went back about 13 months or so ahead of that. There was a lot of sightings that were seen there, and basically it was a big man size, 6 foot, which is kind of common when you look at most sightings of again staying away from big birds and that sort of stuff. Which even they are about the similar size, about 5.5, 6.5 foot tall, somewhere in that range. It's bird-like, kind of has leathery style skin. But one of the common factors is it has red glowing eyes. And one of the things that I picked up on is most people that seen it or seen it take off or fly say it made absolutely no sound when it would take off, when it flies or anything. So, but the first well-documented story on the Mothman sightings was in 1966. There were some grave diggers that were working in, I think it's Clendon in West Virginia, and they noticed a big winged creature that flew into a tree, and then it flew off and flew over their heads. And then about 3 days later, it started really picking up and started getting it. The most popular sighting there was an abandoned World War II TNT plant, and probably the most popular sighting that came out of it is there were some teenagers that they would go out there. And what it is it's big. It's if you've ever seen an ammo dump or anything like that, they're just these big structures they were basically made to store explosives in. And if they blew up, it kind of contained that there. But they're kind of abandoned, and teenagers would go out there and kind of like a lover's thing they do as teenagers do on Saturday nights or what have you. And they this couple of teenagers were out there, and what they said was a massive humanoid, about 10-foot wingspan. It appeared in the sky and then actually chased them down the road. They were hauling butt trying to get away from it, speeding, trying to go, and this thing was keeping up with them. Which I found interesting because later on when we get into where I'm going with this, um, there would be sightings, and then hours later, 60 and 70 miles away, there would be another sighting of the same type of creature. So was it the same one or was it a different one? But I guess where I'm going is it was, I guess, relatively fast. You could travel really, really, really fast. Um, here's another one. That same evening, a man that lived 90 miles away um, saw another creature that he had let his dog out, and the dog took off after the creature, and of course it scared the heck out of him. So he went back inside, but his dog was never seen from again. But again, that was the story. It chased in, and then a couple hours later, 90 miles away, a similar creature was seen. The stories were all over.
Is this strictly about the Mothman, or just
This is
hemorrhoids, or winged creatures, or whatever?
This is more about just the kind of the history. I know you were kind of getting busy. Just kind of the history of where the humanoid sightings come from. I want to move into the Chicagoans and mainly into that area, but kind of just telling everybody a little about the Mothman at Point Pleasant. But, do you guys have any? But what do you guys think? Do you have any comments about the Mothman?
Well, I'm kind of like you. I mean, being a paranormal investigator, I try to have an open mind on a lot of things. This one, I'm not really sure on how I truly feel. My thought is could it have just been something that, the story spread over a town? It's like me telling Rob something, and then Rob tells Mike, and Mike tells Allison, and all of a sudden, before we know it, it's people see it as being real.
Right.
Are you saying that it was more of an imagination or more like a tulpa type creation?
I don't know if it's imagination, because I mean, maybe they truly did see something. Maybe it was a big winged bird that they just happened to see and thought that it was.
A lot of the stories come back to say that they're sandhill cranes, which
Yeah.
you've ever seen them. They can have pretty large wingspans.
They are.
But and I'll say this: there's things that misidentification is common. I think it's very common. It's overly common, in fact. I think as we kind of get into the Chicago stuff in a minute, I don't think it's a sandhill crane. And the reason is there's just too many identifications. There's some pictures that have come out in that, and I'm actually gonna. I know we're gonna test with some of that with live later on, but I'm actually gonna put some of this in our show notes for you guys to see. But you can search for them. There's some pictures and some artist identifications of them. I don't think it's a sandhill crane. Sandhill cranes are skinny, and these things have been described as being like really skinny, skin and bones type thing. But I'm a pretty avid outdoorsman, and we have a lot of sandhill cranes that migrate through here, and I just don't think that.
Well, as far as the bridge incident goes, didn't you say, or did I read, where they said the scientists and all of the mechanical people are saying that it was just a flaw in the bridge?
Yeah, the official explanation is I believe is that it was just the bridge was at the end of its failure. I'd read somewhere that and originally when it was designed, it was made to handle so many cars, and then as time went on, the amount of traffic that went over this was just exponentially greater. And that was the official story. I know you and I had talked offline beforehand, and that, could it have been a plane or something like that? And most of the reports say that this thing made no sound as it went. And it's common across most flying humanoid encounters are these glowing red eyes. So yeah, I mean, could it have been? 1967, we didn't really have drones. We didn't really, not commercially available type stuff like that. There's no telling where things went military-wise, but I don't think that. I don't know. I think it would be something that would be a whole lot more. The amount of sightings that came out of it, I think, would be a little hard to justify as something non-biological.
But didn't you tell me when we talked offline that supposedly this Mothman was seen a day or two prior, and it's kind of like an omen?
Yeah, that's what the kind of the folklore tells us, that a lot of people believe that it was more of an omen or a tale of things to come, like maybe like a warning to people that the bridge was going to collapse. And that's kind of common across the Mothman sightings, is that, when you look at it as a whole genre, is that people associate the sightings of the Mothman with a sign of bad things to come. Like it's almost warning you. And I think that's where popular culture has taken it. When I try to look back historically on things, I don't really see the connection to that sometimes. Does that make sense? I mean, I get where they're going here is there's this impending disaster that
Right.
happened. But I don't see it as, when I look at across the whole spectrum of things, I don't really see it as, to me, I don't see that as a viable option.
Well, but I mean, I guess, we're gonna get into, I think, in our next podcast about Hawaiian folklore, that kind of stuff. If you look across folklore type things, it seems always like there is something that if you do something or see something,
Right.
a pending thing is about to happen
Right.
negatively.
Right.
I
I think that's human nature.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. So yeah, that was pretty interesting how that all correlates together. I don't know. Could have it been something maybe the government was working on in that area? I don't know. It could possibly be. But how many places other than in this location, and you're going to talk about Chicago here, has a Mothman type creature been seen? Do you know?
A lot.
Different states?
A lot. When I look at like the humanoid sightings in Mexico, they're a little different. They're more human type shape, like man-looking shape.
Right.
But when you look, and there's actually, as a matter of fact, we were talking about it beforehand, Ken Gerhard wrote a book called Encounters with Flying Humanoids. He talks about a lot of them. When you look at the Jersey Devil, which is another real famous, probably my most favorite flying humanoid story. I'd really like to investigate the Pine Barrens, but it's a different story, different day. But they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Some of this. What I find, and I'll tell this when I tell my story here towards the end, but there's very similar attributes to it, and then some things are really, really different.
Right.
There's, when you might go to, in Houston, they are gargoyles. That's a common thing, or they call it the Batman, the Bat Beast. But they're all relatively similar as far as, what is the one that, my mind is drawing a blank. There's another one that Small Town Monsters based it off of. It's a story off of. Anyway, very similar attributes. It swoops down on dark, dusty roads. As a matter of fact, I just watched a new release that Ken and Lyle Blackburn had done on their YouTube channel where they're looking at a creature. This is more along the lines of the big bird type sightings, but they have, again, it's similar style activity by the creature, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I think I think that the humanoid encounters are totally different than the big bird encounters.
Yeah.
It's a different day, but I almost kind of want to relate the big bird stuff to like a time slip or something along those lines, just because, I don't know, some of the places that the big birds have been seen in, to me, it would just be really further fetched than Bigfoot, even as far as how could a creature be there and not be seen. Does that make sense?
Right.
So anyway, but what kind of got my attention coming back to this was right here at the round of the new year. There was a whole rash of sightings that came out, and I believe it was on Singular 410. I think it's Singular 410, Phantoms and Monsters, and I got a note here. What is the name of it? The UFO Clearinghouse. Those guys all put together, and they have a map of what's happening in Chicago. And to me, Chicago's really, really different. There are some that the investigators have said this is more than likely definitely a hoax, and they are easily picked apart because some of the things that happen there, start off with it is it's almost supernatural, if that makes any sense. People say they get a feeling of pure evil or dread. I'm only going to talk about a few stories because the information from what's been happening in the Chicago area it's the Lake Michigan. Some people call it the Lake Michigan monster. Some people call it the Chicago Mothman. But the amount of stories that are coming out of Chicago, Phantoms and Monsters, Lon Strickler has done an excellent job of documenting all of these stories. And you can go to their website and I mean, every story that has been reported to one of these organizations is on there. And all of these sites are that way, but it'll give you a brief synopsis of what transpired with the person telling the story in their words. People submit the story to them. There's actually even a couple of pictures on there. What I found funny about one of the pictures, and it's extremely eerie to a couple of big bird pictures that have been taken. So it was a little different, but
So did these cases in Chicago, when did they actually, start ramping up?
they, from what I understand, 2017 was the big year. The first kind of sighting that's been seen, it was I think in 1969, and there's reports, and they kind of go, it'll skip a couple of years for in the early time, and then it'll kind of go up, and then it really picks up in 2017. I want to say there was like 44 sightings in 2017, and then 2019 had just about as many. There was only like a handful of sightings in 2018. And what's kind of odd, if you go to the website there at one of those sites, and I'll put a link in the show notes, there's an interactive map, and you can click on each of the locations. But if you scroll, you know how when you scroll in and out of a map, it kind of changes the point?
Yeah.
It's almost like there is a pattern of flight. So like there's like a central area kind of on the coast of the lake, and then there's like these couple of little chutes that kind of come out off of it. But it's kind of creepy when you really kind of dive into it. One of the first stories I'm going to tell, and I'm just going to kind of read this from this is an excerpt that I took from Phantoms and Monsters. Again, there was 99 reports, I think, on there that have happened since 1969. I said I think 44 of them were in 2017, if that kind of gives a bigger picture of things. But this was submitted by a police officer that he wished to remain anonymous, and just for fear of kind of ridicule, that sort of stuff. From Chicago. And this was submitted. It's submitted a little later, but the actual activity occurred on June 29th of 2017. He says, on the night of June 29th, 2017, approximately 11:15 p.m., my partner and I were on routine patrol approaching the intersection of West 81st and South Route in the Auburn-Gresham neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. We were flagged down by a group of people who were pointing up to the top of the apartment building that was on the corner. My partner and I looked up to see a large creature that was approximately 6 to 6.5 feet tall. It was very thin. If it had been human, it would have been emaciated. The thing was standing on top of the building in what had looked like a pair of very large wings that extended out at least 8 to 10 feet from tip to tip. No discernible features. It just looked like a dark black shadow with wings. My partner and I both thought it was somebody trying to jump from the building and maybe wearing a costume of some kind. We both shined our flashlights to try to get a better look at it and what we were dealing with. This thing took off into the air and flew away. As the creature flew away, headed in a southern direction, something sounding like a scream came from it, and within the matter of about 5 seconds, this creature was gone into the night. The people who initially flagged us down had said that many people in the neighborhood had seen this thing for the previous 2 nights, and this just happened to be the only time that it was seen in a stationary place. That was one of the other things. Although it flies silently, a lot of people have said that it lets off this scary, evil scream sound. I included another couple of stories in here, but another one is on Sunday, August 27th, 2017. There was a retired police officer. Again, I kind of put the police officer things in there again because sometimes they're trained observers. Not saying that everything that they see couldn't be a work of an overactive imagination and the height of an adrenaline rush or something like that. But they're trained observers. They're trained to try to get through some of that to report what they're seeing. He had stopped walking and was about 50 feet or so away from what he described was a dark gargoyle that was looking directly at him. The dog, a standard poodle, was restless and began to bark. The being stood up and made a growling-like sound, very guttural and menacing. The witness noticed that the eyes were small but had a distinct reddish glow. The being had the body shape similar to that of a human man. but was gaunt and had a dark gray and was dark gray in color. There were large wings folded outward from its back, very similar to the typical image of a gargoyle, but much larger. The height was around 6 feet or so. The head was somewhat conical and small compared to the rest of the body. It had long arms with claw-like hands that swayed back and forth in front of the being. After watching for about 10 to 15 seconds, he also had to maintain control of the dog, which was barking and pulling on the lead. The wings snapped back from the back of the being and spread out to a full span. The wings were very distinct with a dark membrane covering. He estimated the span was about 15 feet and extended high above the being. When the being's wings dropped to its side, it quickly propelled itself into the air, heading south in the direction of the metro station. It made no sound as it ascended. That's, again, just another similar story as to kind of what's going on there. And then I'm gonna tell one last one. It says a man sees a 7-foot tall person with wings while standing outside a cargo deck at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. Now, this one I included because this was one of the very there were 3 sightings, one on November 26, 2019, December 3rd, 2019, and then December 6, 2019. I want to kind of talk about these because, if we're out gathering evidence as an investigator, what is one of the things that we do? You may call the person and talk to them, and then I call the person and talk to them. When we're there, we're talking to them, and we're trying to verify that information. Is the story the same? Is it changing? Is it somebody constructing in their mind as they're telling us the story? But what I found interesting about these is I just kind of listen how the stories, how similar the description of the being is that happened here. And another one that was real interesting is all 3 of these were centered around the Chicago O'Hare International Airport. The wording from the first one on November 26th was, I was at the airport picking up a load at Nippon Cargo Airlines. I was already backed into a dock and was standing away from the truck smoking a cigarette while they loaded my truck. I was looking towards the runways in the direction of the tunnel. That is when I noticed something that looked like a large bird standing just outside of the fence by the parking lot. It was hard not to miss because 2 street lamps went by. It looked like a person with wings that were stretched out and flapping. It was walking away from the fence towards the open field and began to flap its wings and disappeared. December 3rd, a security person at O'Hare International Airport writes, I'm reluctantly writing you to report that something I saw a week ago Tuesday. Now keep in mind, December 3rd, a week ago, was about the same time as the sighting on November 26th. Part of my job is to routinely patrol the fence line that surround O'Hare International Airport. I sometimes have a partner with me, mostly new hires who are going through initial training. On the night of Tuesday, December 3rd, I was heading towards one of the airport cargo hubs. There are multiple hubs scattered throughout the airport. This particular one was one located in the Express Center Drive, and it housed at least 6 cargo companies. I was approaching the creek headed towards Montrose when I saw a large person standing down in the creek bed. I stopped thinking maybe it was a trucker who decided to wander down there to relieve himself. I put on my lights and stopped my vehicle and was prepared to get out when this man turned towards me. I saw 2 very bright red eyes. This thing appeared to be looking straight at me, and it turned away and walked away. As it did, it unfurled a set of wings that began to flap. Same as the previous story. It looked like a large goose when it wants to take off in the air. It took off into the air and was gone into the darkness. I was there left wondering what in the hell had just happened and what I had just seen. After I got home, I spent the next few days looking for similar sightings. That is where I came across your website. I'm going to be blunt here. I don't believe in hobgoblins and little green men. I'm sure that there must have been a rational explanation for this. I have a reputation for being grounded and level-headed, and I have worked too hard to get where I am to have all that trash by saying I saw a red-eyed flying man. Yet that is what I saw. I'm torn between reporting this and keeping my mouth shut to protect my retirement. Let me report this. I want everything to be done to protect my identity. And the last story is A man sees red-eyed winged humanoid while driving near Chicago's O'Hare Airport. The witness, who agreed to the use of his first name, Daniel, said that he works in cargo for an airline in the airport. He came near the cargo section, which is where the other two were, and had left work early that night to go meet friends. I was the last one to get out of work, he said. I normally work until 11, but we got done a little earlier than expected. Around 10:15 or 10:20 is when I left. I was driving down West Higgins, and I was headed to the bar to meet up with one of my friends from work. To my left is a large patch of grass where I saw it. It was dark, and there's a building with a certain amount of light near the sighting area. I was able to take a glimpse at it while I was driving, Daniel continued. I saw headlights coming toward me as well. I'm always looking at that side because there's deer there. I'm always eager to look there to see them. I can tell the difference between a deer and what I saw. What I saw was not a deer. According to Daniel, the creature he saw matched exactly what was described by the witness on November 26th, who said he had seen a 7-foot tall person with wings near the loading dock for the Chicago Airlines. Except, said Daniel, the thing he saw had red eyes. He said he was able to estimate the creature's height by comparing it to a nearby fence. Also present was the feeling of evil described by previous witnesses. Daniel said he was ready to dismiss his sighting until he found an article online describing the other man's experience. That was that was really weird because honestly, I thought I was going crazy at first. I said to myself, no, that can't be. I don't think I saw that. After that, once I saw the article the day after my sighting, I thought, okay, I must not be going crazy because Lincoln is not far from where my sighting took place. That was the craziest part. I kind of freaked out. I saw that something wasn't right. I saw it in the same way that the other gentleman saw it. It felt really evil and had those red eyes. How could any creature have those? I thought I was going crazy, man. I thought I was going crazy until I read the article. I must not be the only one who's seeing this stuff. Maybe it was just the fear I felt, but honestly, it didn't feel good at all. It's one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life. It says on here that Lon Strickler, who spoke to the witness, found his testimony to be credible, matching what was told to the senior. So, if you go in, and I have read dozens and dozens of these, I will say I haven't read every one of them, but it's all similar. I mean, it's all, and I don't know, so you and I were talking earlier, almost kind of like the Slender Man thing,
Yeah.
once the story gets passed and the story gets passed, and you have but some of this was before the internet.
Sure.
So, is it a story that, I don't think that,
Can you hear me?
is it a story that people have expanded upon and have been just continually exaggerating so that they, you know what I mean?
Well, I put it to like Bigfoot sightings too are kind of the same. I mean, can you hear me?
I can't hear you. No, your mic went out again. Yeah, no, his mic went out again.
I don't know.
It's working?
I can't hear myself.
Yeah, I don't hear him either.
I think it's going. I think it's picking it up.
Okay. But anyways,
Oh, there it went.
what I was getting at was, it's like Bigfoot sightings. Creatures are all, 6 to 9 feet tall. They all have the same kind of makeup. Is it truly something that everyone's seen? Or is it just they hear the way that the creature looks, and that's how they see it as well?
Right. And here in just a second, I'm going to get to my story, and I will.
And I mean, I will say this, I'm not going to discredit anyone and say what they saw, they didn't see, because that's not the way I am. But I would just, the question I would have is if a creature's that big, in Chicago, where in the world would that creature live?
In the edge of the airport eating the deer. I mean, you know what I mean? This guy says he sees the deer. It's right on the lake. You got to think about how big Chicago is. I'm sure there's buildings, rooftops.
I guess back to your whole internet thing you were talking about. You know, in 1967, we didn't have any of that.
Right.
You know, so people telling that kind of story, I would think a little differently.
Well, and here's the thing. Some of this came out of the news. If you go on the internet, you can Google news reports and
Right.
things like that. But this, up until a few years ago, this really wasn't even, like right now you can go to Phantoms and Monsters or Singular 14 or UFO Clearinghouse and you can see these stories in one spot. But a few years back, none of that was, you couldn't do that. You know, even since the internet, it really wasn't being tracked until somebody started taking note of these news reports and things and started giving a place for people to make them.
Well, and if you think about it, that's right at the 50-year mark of when that 67 thing happened. So is there some tie into that? And you know, I mean, you hear a lot of times when something happens, there's always copycat type stuff that happens. So if maybe
And the first sighting was 2 years after the Silverfish collapse in '69. So,
you know, I mean, even like in the 2017 to 2019 stuff now, you know, could it be someone actually saw something and then now there's a copycat person who's made a suit or
what I like
or,
is,
you know,
if you go to the Singular 14 site, they have these little code identifiers on there, and it'll tell you which one they think is a possible hoax or whatever, based off of stories and different types of factors in their investigation that they've done. I don't know, you know, I'm going to say in 2017, other than reading books, I mean, because I've read books like, you know, Ken's book here, and I've read stories, but it wasn't anything that I was ever interested in.
Yeah.
I didn't really follow it. I didn't know much about it because, again, to me, that idea was far-fetched. And that's bad on me because, again, I shouldn't discount, based off of experiences I've had, I shouldn't discount anybody has to say. But it just wasn't one of those things that seemed plausible to me. So I just didn't track down that path, if that makes sense. I don't, after the thing that I'm going to say in a minute, I started reading about some of this stuff. And I'll be honest, some of these stories that I read, I almost get like a panic attack reading this stuff because I'm like, man, this is too weird, it can't be a coincidence that, I mean, the sightings are almost identical and again, could it be something like, you know, Slender Man, we talked about that, you know, it was a construct of someone's imagination that hit the internet. And some researchers say that the Slender Man really wasn't real until it hit the internet, and it's almost like a tulpa that kind of was created from a thought form that was created from the millions of people on the internet that put it together. When you get a city like Chicago, and like this, you know, I just read 2 police officers' reports and a security guard that talked about that these were going on. These guys, I mean, we know how the paranormal works. I mean, you lose your job if you get too weird. You know what I mean? You keep that stuff under your belt. So for them to come forward and say, I saw this, and I don't know, it's just, it's too much of a...
Well, let me throw this out to you guys. Going back to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there was accounts in '66, if I remember correctly. I think that you had said there was a couple of accounts. Was there anything before that? Had anyone ever made comment of any? And why I'm throwing that out there is why all of a sudden did this creature come to that area?
Well, it hasn't been all of a sudden. I mean, it's just now that sightings have happened at that spot.
Right. But what I'm getting at, though, is prior to '66, was there any reports? Did anyone say that they had seen this winged creature before that?
Yes, but I will tell you, I don't have the specifics. I should have had that in a prepared deal, but the sightings of these creatures have been going back since biblical times.
Okay.
So yeah, and that's one of the things I thought of in '66 and '67. It was in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and then in '69 it shows up over here in Lake Michigan. But also, in certain years, and I wish I had this like tracked out, but I wonder if, like in the year, like say 2018, when it was less active in Chicago, was it more active in Houston? Or was
Right,
it
sure,
more
in other
active?
locations.
And so I see where you're going with that, but yes, I think there has been sightings. And that was one of the things that I thought of. You have like Phantoms and Monsters that's tracking these at in Chicago, but is there we need almost a website like the PFRO
Yeah, right.
that's tracking them nation or
Sure,
worldwide, so then
sure.
you can kind of maybe find a pattern in these. Maybe it is some sort of
Right.
creature, whether it be evil or thought form or
Yeah.
some sort of cryptid or something. Maybe there is something that,
Right.
but that's what it would take. Is it would take
What about tying it to, have you heard or read anything on it being alien related?
Okay, so the one website, UFO Clearinghouse, a lot of people report their sightings to MUFON,
Uh-huh.
to the UFO sites, and things like that. So yes, there is a tie-in
Okay.
to it being along those lines.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I read more about the sightings and those sorts of things. I really didn't go down the path as far as, are there researchers that think it's an actual alien being?
Right.
Most people consider this to be some sort of cryptid.
Yeah.
But there is that evil overtone that kind of keeps coming out. Now, what I'm going to say in the next little portion does have the
overtone to it.
Okay.
And it may even have some sort of alien overtone to it
Yeah,
as well too.
maybe.
But what about you, Rob? What do you think about the Chicago stuff?
I think that's great.
That's Rob being in.
Hi, Rob.
He asked you what you thought about Chicago.
Thanks for joining us tonight, Rob.
Well, I'm kind of listening. I'm letting y'all go ahead and talk along, but one of our commenters was saying that it kind of sounded like we were like offset, like we had a centralized mic in here. And so I've been chatting with him back and forth. So I couldn't understand what was going on, but I found out that we were using the mic to go live was my mic from my computer. I wasn't using these mics right here. So now I'm trying to see how it actually sounds.
I'll give you a hall pass then, since you
go
would
ahead,
have
'cause I
it.
haven't
Okay,
I haven't
Allison,
heard a
what is
single
your
thing.
what is your take on the Mothman?
Tonight is very educational for me. Believe it or not, I've never heard of it.
And I kind of thought that. I know you've been a whole lot more into the haunting stuff,
Yes.
and I know that the cryptid stuff is a little out. And I figured this one would be a little out there. But what do you think about it? You sitting here listening to it, do you have an opinion?
Ooh, do I have an opinion?
Do you think it's something that's plausible?
I think anything is, yes. I think that there's a lot of things out there that we don't know about. Do I think that we're the only humans on the earth? No. I would like to see one and then I can say, oh, absolutely.
Well, do you have any comments before I move into this? I'm going to tie that in, Allison, not to cut you off. Do you have anything else on it?
No. I'll probably feed in off of yours at the end because
Okay.
I know your story. So
Okay. So I'm going to tell a story. I've never told this to anyone other than Jeff and my wife because I think it was just too far out there. As a matter of fact, I think I told you, Jeff, I almost emailed Ken Gerhard just to report my sighting because that's the only person that I had ever really read that had anything to do with anything flying.
Right.
Although, again, most of his more are that he does, I think, and he does kind of everything in his this one book, The Encounters with Flying Humanoids. He talks about them all, but it was that, I had read more of his Big Bird stuff. You know what I mean? Those types of sightings and things, interviews that he had done. But 2017 was a really, really busy year for me. You know, I left in March. I didn't get back till January of 2018. Um, I was kind of gone all over the place. And for those of y'all that don't know, I'm a catastrophe insurance adjuster, and then I kind of travel where the storms was. 2017 was East Tennessee kind of got pummeled pretty badly, and then of course we had the Hurricane Harvey that hit, and I worked down in Corpus for a while, and then I went up to Houston and worked in that area for a while, and I moved up to Houston towards the end of the year, and this was, and I forgot that note, but it was around my birthday. It was around the end of October, and I had just moved to Houston, and I was staying. I stay in an RV. And I was staying in an RV park in kind of on the south side of Houston and right outside of Houston in League City. And where I was at there was it was very busy. I mean, if you've ever been to Houston, it's some people relate it to being worse than driving in LA. It's a massive just place. But where I was at, it was kind of quiet. It's I was kind of on the east side of League City, kind of almost to the water, from where I was at. And one night I had gone out. I usually stay up late till about 11 or 12, and writing my stuff. And I had gone outside and was just kind of chilling out for a minute before I went to bed. And I'm sitting out there. I think I was actually texting Jeff.
You were.
And as I'm sitting there talking, I mean, it's nothing. I had no recent. It's not like I was reading books on this at the time or had been listening to stories on this at the time. It had just been a very uneventful day. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Jeff about coming out. We were going to go do the Ghost Road lights, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
And because that was in the area, so that's what I was kind of into at the time was the Ghost Road stuff. And there was a haunted location over in Port Arthur. I forgot Lane was out there, and I saw him move through the crack, and I'm like, whoa. Anyway, but as I'm sitting out there, I just happened to look up, and I remember it was kind of an overcast night. But if you've ever been, especially in a big city, I mean, the clouds were kind of high, but it was overcast. But again, it was very populated, and I could see
Because the city lights, I'm sure, were hitting the clouds.
Yeah,
right?
and then the RV park had lights, and I could kind of see. And running right beside the RV park that I was in were high lines, and they crossed the highway almost directly behind my trailer. And as I looked up, what I saw was this bat-like object, and I watched it, and it was underneath the high lines, and it went in between. So like on my side was a tower with the high lines, and the other side was a tower angle. And I watched this thing, and it went underneath the high wires, in between those poles. So at the time, I wasn't really thinking about it, but I could tell that this was big. It wasn't like it was, a bird that I was misidentifying. Because matter of fact, I kind of looked up and I thought it was almost a flock of birds. And then as I watched it and it moved, and the light from the intersection where they had the street lights was low enough. It was just right above the street lights, but the way they were, it was kind of bouncing off the bottom of this. And what I could tell was it was like this gray vampire bat style wing, almost kind of scalloped on the trailing edge. Now I didn't really see a body, but what I saw was the wings kind of folded out in like a delta shape, if you will, and it was kind of scalloped on the back edge. And what I could make out was that the back edge of it was flapping in the wind as it flew. Now that's really all I really remember of it. And I remember just thinking, what in the hell was that? And so that's when I kind of messaged Jeff, and I'm like, dude, I think I'm overstressed. I think that's actually what I said to you.
Yeah, you did.
And then I thought I was even sending things, and I went and got out my EDI, and I was measuring EMF, and I will say it was high.
Yeah.
I was getting about 8 to 10 milligauss consistently in my area of the park, which can induce hallucinations, can induce these things. So I kind of I remember I kind of tossed and turned that night thinking, what the heck was that? I mean, really, what was that? And then I thought, the next day I got up and I think I was talking to you throughout the day, and I went and did some claims, and I was coming back. And that's when it dawned on me. I said, well, I think I'm going to email Ken.
Yeah.
And kind of see what's going on. But I said, man, as an investigator, I just don't think I want to dump that on somebody because I don't want to lose credibility.
Sure.
I mean, that's why I ultimately never sent it to him.
Yeah.
But he's, like I said, he was the only person I knew that investigated and tracked some of that stuff that I had heard of. That at the time, I'd heard of Lon Strickler doing the cryptid stuff, but I really just never got down that path. So I guess it was a couple of nights later, I just got the wild hair and I went on and I started Googling, Houston big birds, I think is what I started with, because that's what in my brain was relating it to. And lo and behold, I stumbled on a gold mine of stuff that kind of maybe changed my perspective on this whole thing. So there is sightings in Houston of what they call the Bat Beast, the Batman. There's they call it Mothman, and it kind of goes down towards Corpus and back up to the Houston area. But one of the things that I found really interesting, and I'm not going to go down that path because we could do an entire episode on Jack Parsons, but this is where it gets a little weird. But so if you don't know who Jack Parsons is, he was the founder of JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He is the person that developed the solid state fuel that we end up ultimately sending our rockets to the moon with. Very instrumental in helping NASA get to that point. Again, there's a whole lot about Jack Parsons, but the thing that's funny is the story of the Houston gargoyle, as I'm going to call it, the NASA gargoyle, kind of relates back to Jack Parsons. So there's a story out there, there's some myths out there that actually the truth of the story is Jack Parsons was really involved in the occult. He and like Aleister Crowley were like good friends. They talked back and forth. He was actually also friends with L. Ron Hubbard, and matter of fact, they were into like sex magic and dark magic and all that kind of stuff. And Aleister Crowley ran off with Jack's girlfriend, fiance, and anyway, that's some really weird stuff. It's kind of weird that the founder of JPL was into some of that stuff. He ended up ultimately blowing himself up in his basement, developing something. But the story is so it was well known that Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, they would do these incantations to try to open portals, to try to influence things by astral projection and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So the story is that they created portals that opened up that allowed these beasts to come through. And so one of the stories that I want to talk about, and I got this one from, is actually the story was on Anomaly, which I'm not super huge of that site, but I thought this story was pretty good. It's actually on a bunch of different sites, but it was worded good. But this story involves NASA archivist Frank Shaw and what happened on a windy night in 1986. Shaw had an uneventful day of work, and when his shift ended, he headed for his car. Shaw said that as he neared his vehicle, he happened to glance up at one of the massive buildings at the JSC, which is at the NASA complex there. What he saw was unlike anything he had ever seen and something he wished he never had. It was perched on top of the building and instantly filled Shaw with terror. He described a bizarre creature, a large jet-black nightmare with huge bat-like wings, reminding him of a gargoyle. He froze in place as a winged beast stared straight at him. Shaw felt that the gargoyle-like creatures actually enjoyed the panic that he was experiencing. The gargoyle then spread its wings and with a crackling sound flew off into the Houston night. Shaw eventually managed to calm himself enough that he could begin his drive home. His family noticed that he was later than usual but thought he probably had to work late, which was not uncommon. When he finally arrived home, it was obvious that something was terribly wrong. He was an honest and serious man, but the story he had to tell was not just believable. His family felt that he must have misinterpreted what he had seen. What all what all could agree on was that he should not tell anyone about his sighting at the Houston Gargoyle. Frank Shaw kept his word and said nothing about what he had seen for a while, but eventually he decided that he could confide in his friend and supervisor and told him what he had seen. The response that Shaw received was a total surprise. Shaw's supervisor informed him that he was not the first one to report the strange gargoyle creature. In fact, a file had already been opened dealing with the bizarre creature following a sighting of the gargoyle and the death of 2 German shepherds at the JSC. Shaw was relieved to know he had not imagined the whole event, but was soon visited by investigators and interrogated about what he had seen. Shaw told them everything he could remember about the gargoyle encounter, and investigators seemed to be satisfied. Before leaving, however, the investigators gave Shaw a stern warning to keep quiet about the incident. Shaw kept his word and never again talked about the night he saw the Houston Gargoyle. Now, where I'm going with this story is there's multiple sightings supposedly reported at NASA complex there of this Houston Gargoyle. My RV park that I was in was about 2 miles from the Houston Space Center.
Interesting.
It was so there was a big drainage ditch that kind of ran through, and that drainage ditch, in the way it comes through, it kind of came off the end of the Space Center, and it runs through, and then where my RV park was right at a bridge where railroad tracks went that went up towards the Space Center, and then out that path, the train tracks went straight over to the coast, and that little inlet in that drainage area went out into the water. The path...
You can go just make that bigger. Make that full screen for us. Go ahead. Go ahead with your story. No, that's good.
The path that this thing was taking was from the Space Center to the water that I saw. And so, did I see I've got two places to take this. Did I see a humanoid creature, or did I see some sort of Black Ops project that they're developing at the space program that's some sort of...
You're talking about the new space program that's coming out right now. The Space Force.
No, I'm talking just in general. Did I see a gargoyle from the Houston Space Center, or did I see maybe some sort of technology that they were using and they were flying out to the coast to test this thing or something?
So what you saw, you said it was wing-like. Is that all you could see? I mean, did you see any?
It was
like a face.
Was it
or?
I didn't see red glowing eyes. I didn't see.
What kind of wing was it? Was it like a square wing or a bat wing?
What I remember was a bat wing. Matter of fact, there is an image that I'm going to put in the notes of a bat-like creature, and it almost kind of looked... You know how some of like the vampire movies will have this skeletal-looking wing, and it's kind of leathery, and it's kind of flappy, and it's scalloped on the back edge between like the ribs that hold... That's what I kind of remember seeing. It was kind of a grayish, darker color, but again, it was dark,
right.
And what I'm seeing is the light reflecting off of it. It was close enough that I could see. Sitting back now, and I went out multiple nights. I've got a couple of cameras and rangefinders, and I don't have that information at this point here, but I went out and was looking up at those deals, and what I could estimate is that the wings...
What the heck, man? Come on. Now, you go ahead and do your story. I'm trying to watch the fight over here, too.
The wings were probably 10 to 15 feet wide. Wingspan is probably because of where it flew in the... Again, it was under the wires on top of the towers, the struts that hold the power lines, the high lines up. But it was above the ground, under the lines, and it flew in between two. So as I'm watching it go, and I'm watching across the street, there's a car, and I can kind of see, and I can tell you that it was like this wide. It was probably 10 to 15 feet wide in the air as it went across.
Okay, so how high up in the air would you say that would be?
Those towers, if I remember, and I've got notes somewhere, those towers, I want to say were about 150 or 200 feet tall.
Okay.
So it was up, and it was 2/3 of the way down. And the first tower was literally directly behind my I got some pictures somewhere. It was directly behind my trailer, within 30 yards of my trailer. The other tower was on the other side of the highway, so 4 lanes wide.
Now, when you saw it flying, was it flapping or just gliding?
It was like gliding, wings out, but the trailing edge, because I didn't hear any noise, but it was close enough that I could kind of see the trailing edge of it flapping in the wind as it was going. It reminded me of like a kite or something.
Right, that's what I was about to ask.
That was going, but it's 11:30 at night, 10:30, 11.
Was it floating straight up or going sideways?
Going straight, and it flew underneath the high lines across the highway, straight out.
And you never
towards the
saw
Gulf.
it go up or down with the arms,
Okay.
or you just saw it like in a V formation?
Yeah, so picture this, if you will. If I stand and I'm looking in a direction, my trailer was right in front of me.
Okay.
I'm standing at the front of my trailer, so off to my left is where kind of the left is my trailer. Behind that was the high lines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to my right at an angle away from me, and there's lights. So I can't see much. And then all of a sudden out of this light comes this thing, and that's when I first thought it was like a flock of geese or something. And then as it kind of got away from the light and I could see what it was, and I mean up above me, it wasn't 100 feet in the air. Does that make, I mean, it was 100, maybe 150 feet in the air. I want to say the towers were 200 foot tall, because they went over and there was a high bridge right there. And I want to say they were the big struts that like a big T, and they got 2 peaks on the top.
Yeah.
And so it was like maybe 150 feet in the air. And as it went over, and it got out of the light that was blinding me. Now the light's reflecting off the bottom of this. I could see it. And as it's flying away, it's starting to go out of my view in the trailer. So I walk in front of the trailer and over behind the trailer. There's no other trailers, because I'm in an RV park. There's no other ones behind me. And I'll follow as I'm looking up. I'm watching it go away from me. And it flew over and was gone.
So the next
Went
day,
out of my sight. The light quit reflecting off of it, and it went, because it got over.
so the next day when you got up, did you watch the news or?
I did. I went and I looked at the time I was looking on MUFON,
Okay.
because that was what I
Right.
that's what I knew.
Right.
So I was looking on MUFON to see if there was any other sightings. There were some similar sightings of an object in the sky, and I've got the date. And matter of fact, I'll see if I can get some of that and put it up.
I mean, in that area where
Yes.
you were at?
Yeah, it in the Houston proper area. Actually, I think the next one was. So you have the Space Center and you have League City, and the Space Center, I forget, and there's like another little town that's, Houston. You're driving, and each exit's its own little subdivision, neighborhood, town.
Right.
So there's another little town. And that's where another sighting. It was a sighting of something large in the air, flying, no lights, whatever, like that. So that was there, but that's all I really saw. Again, it's kind of late and it was overcast. I think it was about to rain.
Okay, so you, being the skeptic that I am, I'm just going to ask questions. You already said that high levels of EMF was there
Mm-hmm.
due to
it's
the
around
power
the towers,
lines, right?
And that's what I attributed it to. Straight up.
What time of the night was this? So would you be probably worked a full day and are pretty tired?
Yeah. So
You're
it's
stressed.
I want to say it was 11:22, something like that, is when I actually remembered to go. And I think if I was either texting you or I was texting Jamie, and I remember going back and looking at a text message, and I think that was like the time that I came up with.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it, because if you know anything about Mike, when he writes a text to you, it's a book normally.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But anyways, so you could have been tired. You probably were tired, because I know
was
you
tired.
work a lot of
Any
hours.
medication?
And I know where you're going with this from an investigator standpoint.
Right. And I'm just trying to think. Maybe it was something from the government side of it. Maybe some kind of test aircraft or something.
But they don't really have like.
Yeah, but they don't
it's not-
test it
Yeah,
out
it's
there.
not like a
It's-
landing. It's not like they have airstrips.
No,
and-
exactly.
You know what I mean? It's so But they do have research, and they have
Right.
and you wouldn't
Yeah,
need
the
it
only
if you
thing
had
that-
a drone.
Right,
you know.
exactly. If you had some way
But-
of landing it, you wouldn't need a.
Zero noise, because I remember being able to hear, because there would be this time of night on this little road. It was massive subdivisions all around me, but it would get really quiet at dark, at that
Yeah.
time of night, and there'd just be a car or two going by every now and then. But I remember being able to hear the wind, and when it was flapping, I couldn't really hear that, but I remember it was close enough that I could see the trailing edge of it flapping in the wind. But what I don't remember, the wing shape was shaped very similar to a picture that again I'll share, but I don't remember seeing like a body. But at that distance, I mean, could I have necessarily seen it at that distance in lighting? You know what I mean? If it was daytime and I saw it silhouetted, could I have seen it? Maybe. But I will, straight up, full disclosure, what I attributed to was fatigue and EMF.
Yeah.
Any medication?
Not like nothing like, no. I mean, I take blood pressure medicine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, however, I just found it odd that what I see, that gray, flapping, leathery style skin is what I'm thinking, is what sticks out. And then I go read, and guess what? There's other sightings
Yeah.
of the same thing in the same area. There's the Houston Gargoyle, multiple sightings less than 2 miles from me.
Let me ask you this: had you done any kind of reading or research on anything like this prior to this?
Nope. Matter of fact, this book that I got of Ken's, I got after when you
Okay.
and I went,
Yeah.
and I bought that because of that sighting.
Sure.
And I had seen the stuff, and I knew that, like I said, I knew Ken had done that because I had gotten in real big into chupacabra here a while back, and that's what
Yeah.
I remember because Ken was real big in debunking a lot of that and
Right.
and looking into that. But I knew that he was into that. That's why I was I'll send him an email and see what he thinks.
Sure.
And I still thought maybe I should, because maybe he has other stories that it's not
Yeah.
on those websites or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you go to a conference and you see him, bring the story up to him.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It changed my perspective as far as just discounting it. Although I'll straight up say, I'm not saying that I saw Mothman,
Yeah.
but with my experience, and then I read this stuff in Chicago that's happening, bam, 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 bam. I'm like, it gives me chills. I mean, it literally, I'm like, man, daggum. I don't know. There's something to it.
And so since that day, you've never seen anything like that before?
Since, you mean, or?
You mean
Since.
again?
No.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah. Interesting.
I never took interest. Matter of fact, most of my books are up here in this bookshelf, and if you look, I don't have very many flying humanoids, and every one of them were the ones after.
I think it's the wings that are getting me.
Yeah.
Because you're saying that you didn't hear anything. So
There's a picture, and I'll show
so
you.
no propulsion, and then the wings weren't flapping because anything
It was
that
like
flies
gliding
is-
like a bird. You know
but
how
for
a bird
that long
Well,
in a straight line. Gliding, they would have to be coming down an angle a little bit. If they're going straight across, they got to have some sort of propulsion.
And there was no wind? Do you
There
remember if it
was some light
windy?
wind. Like I said, I think it was going to rain. There was some light wind. I want to say it was kind of misty. See how? That's not it.
That's the only thing that gets me. And the only thing that I've seen, and as far as winged, and when you were talking about the leather, the only thing that came up to my mind was Jeepers
Creepers. That's
the
what I
only
was
thing that came
thinking
up
too.
to my mind.
That's how I described it to Jeff. Is I think I saw the
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers thing. That's exactly
Yeah.
what came to my mind. That's exactly. That is, matter of fact, I'm glad you said that, because that's matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that's how I described
I
it. It
think
looked like the Jeepers Creepers monster.
Even the wings, because the wings were.
That's all I
more-
remember seeing as
okay.
wings.
Or the
But you didn't see like legs or anything
Yeah,
behind it?
No, I didn't. But see, like, look here. This is what.
how about when you see
See this?
Batman flying? You know.
Not really, but yeah. So this is the only picture that comes kind of close to it. See how this wing is kind of scalloped? This is one of the Chicago ones. Let's see if I can bring it.
So does it look?
I'm gonna see if I can bring it up for.
Does it look something like that?
Let's
See,
that thing
I don't
has
remember
wings.
it, but see, if you spread these out, maybe, but like this back edge, yeah, would be. I'm trying to think.
And that was.
See, here is the real famous Mothman, and this is kind of what, or the Chicago one. But see how this back edge, what I remember was more of a scalloped edge, but this edge was flapping. But see, there's no like body that you can see. So I'm looking up, and all I can see is what light is reflecting off the bottom. But I do remember it looking like that trailing edge was flapping as it was going over.
But much bigger than a bat, because that kind of looks like a bat to me.
Much bigger. Yeah.
That almost looks like someone in a suit.
Yeah, it looks like
One of
somebody in a
those
wingsuit.
Wingsuit, yeah. Which I would love to do.
I wish
See,
I would
there's
have
this-
different.
There's this
pictures of
drawing.
because I know people want to see what we're talking about.
There's this drawing. This is what I can relate it. This is what the wings kind of they were scalloped like that. Not like that bottom left one, but more of a what I would relate the Jeepers Creepers example to me is what I see in my mind, or like a vampire bat.
I'm trying to figure out which one because if I can find one that you're looking at, I can put it up here.
Go
for everyone look
to I think it's on the Singular 410 website is the one that I pulled. I've got them in the notes, but I don't have them labeled here. There you go. See that one that's circled, maybe? Is that it?
That's like a moth.
No, that's... Type in flying humanoid instead of Mothman under images. But anyway, it just changed my perspective. I'm not saying that I definitely saw a flying humanoid, but the experience that I had was unusual. It was unique. It was out of my comfort level with the data that I had. And
well, I think for me, what I found interesting on the story, one is I know you personally, so I know you're not going to fabricate some kind of story like this. But more importantly, you were able to follow it up with other people experiencing some kind of winged creature around the same time.
Right.
No, I see a bunch of them. Like there's a real flying humanoid in India, flying
the ones
humanoid over Chile.
those in South America and over there, those look different. Look at the one that's... I'm pretty sure it's on the Singular 4TN website. Yeah, those are more of the human shape deals. Look up Chicago Mothman. But yeah, so I found it intriguing enough that, again, I tried to follow it up with, I checked EMF, I checked the environmental factors. I mean, I knew that I was under the high lines. I'm in an RV park where there's 50 amp service run every 8 feet wide. There was 200 and something slots in this park. But apparently there's a lot of sightings there too, and that's the part that gets me because, again, I had that stuff never crossed my mind.
Yeah, and that's why I asked you, because I don't ever remember of even talking about.
That's what I remember you asking me.
Such as that.
You're probably just tired, man.
Yeah, that's what was my first thought.
And I'm like, it was something. I mean, I saw something, whether or not my mind misconstrued it.
For me, those you out there that may not know me, I am susceptible to high levels of EMF. I get nauseated in my stomach. I get really tired. I do have hallucinations. So could it be a combination of that? You're tired.
Well, see, and typically, in my experience, and I'm not saying that that's the only factor I would have. Sometimes people are allergic once when they find out that they've eaten something their
Yeah.
whole life.
Yeah.
But typically, in my experience, my sensitivity to EMF results in like a sinus pressure headache. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
When I can tell when there's, like, if a storm's rolling in and you feel that energy coming, I kind of get that pressure in my forehead. If we go into a place that's got high EMF, that's kind of what I feel. Again, it did have high EMF. I was fatigued and tired. I mean, matter of fact, I went to Tennessee. I moved in Tennessee. I came back. I went to Corpus. I came back. I went to Houston.
Yeah.
And I had been in Houston for days.
Well, and it's a lot of stress on your body.
And I'm pulling my trailer. I'm just now arriving on site, so I have all these contacts to make. I've got all these things to do. I've got to get here. I'm learning a new area. I absolutely despise Houston traffic. I mean, that stresses me out more than anything when I work in the Houston area. And anyway, it was there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. The problem is I still have I understand those factors, but I still saw something.
And I can see that. It's the other accounts that was reported around the same time.
Yeah.
That's the little
Right.
check that extra little box
Well,
there.
and not only that, but so some of the sites, even if they were at a different time, they describe the dark gray,
right,
gargoyle-looking wings, and it's 2 miles. And I love the space centers. I have been everywhere but Florida. I mean, I've been to Huntsville. I've been to, here in Texas. I've been to the ones, the smaller ones that are around that have this stuff. I absolutely love going to the space centers, and I've always been intrigued since I was a kid with it. Never, ever, ever heard that story. And then I have this experience, and I look it up, and guess what? They're having this experience.
Yeah.
But I also know how our government works. And
yeah.
is it a cover up for what they're really flying? Are they testing a new piece of equipment?
I just have one more question for you, and I'm done. You may have said this in your story. When you first saw it, how long was it in the air visually that you could see from when you first saw it till it was gone?
It was pretty slow moving. Do I have sound?
Yeah, you got sound.
Something's messing up on my headphones. It was pretty slow moving. I'm going to say, if I'm like 7-8 seconds.
7-8 seconds.
Maybe up to 10. Because it went from, in my field of vision, maybe at say 40 degrees. And then it kind of came into the light where I could tell that that's what it was. And then it crossed over. And as it kind of crossed down on the other side, it maybe, say, 150 degrees.
So then it probably would have had to have flapped its wings pretty close before you saw it. Because of a creature of that size, I mean, I understand flight and all of that,
right,
how it works, that they could glide for a little while.
Well, and again, I thought it was a flock of geese or something when I first saw it. So it was in the light where I couldn't see it. It was behind the street fixture.
Yeah.
So I could see that there's something there. So maybe I don't know. Maybe.
But could have it been a couple birds kind of separated enough that their wings made it look like that?
Honestly, that was my initial impression. But as it flew more directly, it was never directly overhead of me. It flew from my right to my left, and I want to say, if you held, I don't know how to describe it. It was in front of me from my right to my left, but it wasn't maybe 50 yards in front of me.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of times when the street lights from the intersection,
like, is it that one up there in the corner?
No,
it doesn't look like that at all.
I don't think so. No, to me that looks like, I think that's the one that may have been determined as to be a hoax. I mean, the wing kind of shape on this one, but if you turned it around, so it looks like, does that make sense? Like if you chopped off the legs and turned the picture around flying the other way, that's what it kind of looked like, that shape.
Talking about the one that's in that corner up there.
Yeah, this one, if you took, so this one up here,
Right. You're pointing at the right, yeah.
if you took the legs off of it and then turned that, because right now it looks like it's flying with the wings cutting forward.
Right,
But
right.
what I saw, the wings they were kind of pointed on the front and then scalloped on the back edge and kind of almost, I won't say tattered because I couldn't see that much detail, but they were almost like, I don't know.
So it couldn't have been something like a pelican. I mean, you were close to the water, right?
Man, and I grew up in Pensacola.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say
yeah,
pelicans can get really big.
Yeah.
I grown up in Florida.
I don't, yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
That's fine. I'm just trying to.
I don't think, if I misidentified it, it was some sort of tech.
Yeah.
I don't think it was any bird.
Okay.
It was bigger than that.
Yeah. Okay.
I do have a good estimate on size. Yeah, more like the back edge of that, but not as pointy on the front. It's like you turn the wings around backwards on that one, Rob. Does that make sense? It's like the wings are pointed in the wrong. Oh. The anyway, I don't misidentify it as an animal.
Yeah.
If it was anything that I misidentified, it was tech. It was, but why would? It's not like a glider or something that some person
Right.
was flying underneath the high line.
Sure.
And
sure.
if it was a drone, we all know you could be using illegal software and stuff like that. But if it's any commercially available drone, you're not going under those high lines because when you get close to it, it's going to set you down.
Yeah, it sure will.
It's shutting you off. And I know that it flew between the posts under the wires. It was, and it was right there. Anyway, again, I don't know what it was, but the main thing I wanted to portray in the episode was that I saw that, and then I looked up. Days later, I looked up and found. Matter of fact, I think I texted you back. I heard it on a podcast.
Yeah, you did.
And I'm like, what? So then I went looking, and that's where I heard. I was actually listening to a podcast about Jack Parsons, and that's where I heard it. And then I went, and I'm like, son of a gun. And that's where I looked it up and found that. But anyway, I think that's probably about it. Does anybody have any other comments?
No, I don't. I think it was very interesting to learn a little bit about all of this and then hear your experience. Because, like I said, I was like you, and I still really don't know what to think about the whole Mothman creature and all of that. Is it just something that, one person starts and the story goes and goes and goes and goes, and all of a sudden it becomes reality? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never experienced it. I don't know. Like you said, I don't know anybody that's had a personal experience with a winged creature other than yourself. So I really don't know. But I would say that if you guys have any personal stories out there, it would be really interesting to hear those stories.
Yeah, I would absolutely love if you've had a Mothman winged creature flying. I would absolutely love to hear your story. I debated for days when leading up to this to even tell that story again because I have a problem with the credibility part of it. I know that sounds odd and maybe a little conceited of me, but I thought, you know what the heck? If I can't tell my story and in my position, then nobody else is going to tell their story. So
Exactly.
And I can't discount it. I mean, we can go to a place and somebody tells me they saw a figure come out of the closet, and I believe that. So I can't discount it.
Right.
I would like to. It makes me want to do some more. There was actually a lot of sightings that happened in like rural Midwest places. I would love to go do a road trip just to.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do if I were driving down the road and something swooped down at my car because I had a duck do that to me one time and it freaked me out. So. Anyway, I enjoyed reading about it. I think that the Chicago stuff is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Something going on there, whether it be, I almost think it's like Tulpa related. I mean, the more the stories are starting to get out there now, the more people are seeing them, the more
Right.
it's going. It's kind of hard for me to think that it's some sort of, when I say cryptid, I mean just an unidentified animal
Right.
in a populated area like Chicago proper, because this is like downtown on buildings and skyscrapers. It's almost like a gargoyle. Is it somebody like, I'm not saying he in particular, but somebody like Jack Parsons maybe opened something that created something? I mean, you know, we believe in the supernatural, then why can't we believe that somebody
Yeah.
opened something they shouldn't have?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that there's something going on in Chicago. There is a real phenomena going on in Chicago. If you don't know about it, you need to check out Phantoms and Monsters or the Singular 410. I'll have all these show notes in there, but they are. It's definitely a phenomena that needs to be kept an eye on.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'm looking forward to next weekend.
Yeah,
It's gonna
I'm
be
excited.
cold.
I'm excited. Cold, yeah, but I
I think the weather's supposed to be like 54 and 32.
But it'll be fun to get out there and stomp around the woods a little bit and
That's good camping.
have a good time.
You can sleep at night.
We're gonna try and do anything live out there.
It's pretty weak signal.
Okay,
We can try.
we can try, but I'd
We
probably
might check on social media. We might try to post some stuff up. But
maybe a couple pictures. But I was thinking maybe we could use a hotspot out there, but I don't
same
know.
as our cell phones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I did learn that each one of us is probably going to have some sort of GoPro on us.
Nice.
Because you got yours.
I've got mine, yes.
You have one. I'm going to order one. So
Nice.
I can let Jeremy use Daniel's.
Okay.
Jeremy's taking night vision, real stuff.
We're going to have night vision out there this time?
Yeah. High end stuff.
Not the. What about thermal? We got any thermal?
Well, that's what he's got, real thermal.
Oh, it's not the night vision. It's thermal imaging.
And I mean, of course, I've got my stuff. But
Well,
that's-
yeah.
I can't afford that 10 grand stuff. So
No.
Yeah.
I'm a little excited. We've got, hopefully, we find another track or something. Maybe we can find a trackway or something. We get some good casts. We got better equipment. When I went before, I only had my little sample kit in my go bag. So,
And we have plenty of cast mix.
yeah, that's what I mean. We got plenty
Oh,
of
we
stuff
got
in
plenty
there.
of that stuff now.
Yeah.
We
So
bought it
between-
for the last time, didn't use it. We got like, what, 10 pounds?
Oh, I think at least.
Yeah.
It fills up an entire backpack.
Yeah, it did.
And for those that are listening, our next show, we're looking at doing the Hawaiian folklore.
Hawaiian folklore, but I think I want to change it into island folklore.
Okay. All right.
Because I have a student that's from Guam, and I just asked him, I was like, hey, do you guys have any legends or folklore? And he's like, what are you talking about, Mr. Worth? I was like, just legends out there. And he's like, yeah. And he started telling me about some of these. I'm writing them down. I'm like, oh, that's good. Really? Oh, and I'm just writing them down.
Nice.
So it's
Well, that's the area that, the whole Polynesia area is where the Hawaiian settlers were said to come from. So
that's what I want to see. I want to see if there's any
Yeah, there's
correlation, yeah.
between them, or if they did the island hopping, kind of like
Yeah.
the telephone game.
Yeah.
I guess that's my new thing when it comes to folklore.
Yeah, I
Or
hear that.
telephone game now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couldn't-
Well, and if we don't, we want to push that Hawaiian one live on all our platforms.
I do.
So we're trying to get some remotes. We're trying to go full on that one, but we may do a little excerpt from what we do next weekend.
Okay.
We've got some stories if we get that out first, but the Hawaiian one is coming up.
Mhm.
We've got a
But
whole,
with that one, what you're talking about, what I want to do is kind of like what you were talking about, kind of like have an episode of it, to where we're almost always filming,
Yeah.
and we can just throw together stuff. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Ever since I started messing with that Adobe Premiere Pro, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah, it's a great program.
the things I can do. I
Yeah.
mean, that little thing I put up for the Priya video,
Yeah.
having the stuff in the background, I looked and that was easy. That was easy. And then next time, we're gonna have an video intro, guaranteed, because I'm halfway done with that one.
good deal.
We were talking about that private video that we did.
Mm-hmm.
That was for the group in Australia.
Yeah.
Did we know if they were involved in any of that fire, the wildfire that's going
I
on
didn't
over
even
there?
I didn't ask him. I talked to him.
We may
briefly.
want to. We may want
Yeah.
to look into that.
I think most of the fire, they got a bunch of rain the other day,
Yeah.
and I think that they put out I think I saw like 40% of the remaining fires this last.
Oh, that's
That's
good.
good.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, thank goodness. I was telling the guys at Pride, that's my dream vacation.
Yeah.
Is
Oh, me
Australia.
too.
I would. That's where overlanding
Yeah.
came from.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I would love to do a
Yeah.
cross continent tour.
Yeah.
Shoot, I think I would just love to go to Australia.
Yeah.
Just take a visit out there. I'm looking at our video, and it's looking pretty good. It really is. But we did not plan to go blue shirt, black shirt.
Oh,
I'm looking at the video. I'm like, okay, there's two blue, two black. Okay, cool.
I want to ask you guys. I'm really wanting to put together some of our listener stories this year, especially getting up. Again, we're a long ways away, but of course, all of us that look forward to Halloween, I want to start getting some of that. If you have any stories, it doesn't have to be Halloween related, but any paranormal stories, ghost stories, flying cryptid stories, UFO stories, please share those with us. Send those to us. I want to try to collect some of that. If you don't want to talk on the air, you can tell us a story. We'll relay it. We'll keep you anonymous. I'd like to get some of your guys' intake on some things.
Well, and two, if you guys have any photos or any videos maybe that you'd want us to take a look at and see, get our take on it, you
Yeah.
can send those to us as well.
And we now have the capability to put it up here so everyone can see.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, well, I'd like to say thanks for listening to us. And this year's going to be a very exciting year.
Yes, it is.
We're getting pretty close to our anniversary again.
Yes.
and
around the corner.
Yeah, and we said we're going to do a get together, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
That's
good.
correct.
Be nice if some of the old members can come.
Yeah, yeah. So, hey, you can find us on Facebook.
Instagram.
Twitter.
You can find us on our website at www.militaryparanormal.com.
You'll find us on Podbean. We'll put this episode on Podbean and now all the other platforms. Twitch.
YouTube.
Facebook, they said, is not really working well, but you can find us on there. But some streaming platforms. If you know of any other streaming platforms, let us know. We'll get out there. Like I said, we're on Twitch. We're on Mixer now. And D Live, we're on that one as well.
Righty, and you can always call us at 940-437-4MPI or email us at podcast@militaryparanormal.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you guys have a good evening, and we'll talk to you later.
Good night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the MPI Paranormal Podcast. This podcast has been brought to you by Military Paranormal Investigations. Hope you all enjoyed the show. Don't forget to connect with us on Podbean, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time, the truth is to be found.